Chapter 256, The Female Bandit. This was the first Prince Charles. As Han Sha-O squinted at him, he suddenly had an odd thought. Lawrence is the owner of the Rose Garden, so the mage guards around should be under the order of that murderous Balans. For the first Prince Charles to come here to seek pleasure, he's basically unknowingly gone deep into the tiger's den. If Lawrence receives the support of Carl, wouldn't he be able to soundlessly kill that Charles? Haha, good. Charles first laughed loudly with satisfaction, then he curved his mouth and coldly provoked, "You should dispel any thoughts as soon as you can, or you may even die without knowing how." Finishing this sentence, Charles conveniently dropped a vicious line in a low voice, "Little bastard mutt, let's go. Shall we have some fun?" Charles turned his body with a loud laugh and left, with the bootlickers following closely behind him. He paid no more attention to Lawrence. Lawrence's face twisted with anger. His two hands clenched tightly into fists, blue veins popping out from their backs. Lawrence couldn't suppress the light trembling of his entire body. His furious eyes emitted thick murderous intent as he viciously stared at the departing back of Charles. Even his breathing had become much heavier. Looking at Lawrence's posture that might blow at any moment, Han Sha-O was truly afraid the guy wouldn't be able to control himself and would throw everything to the wind to risk his life for a fight with Charles. To an illegitimate child, the most humiliating thing was to be cursed as a bastard. When this vicious curse came from the person they hated the most, it increased the humiliation by tens of times. No wonder even an introvert like Lawrence almost raged out of control. Patting Lawrence's shoulder, Han Sha-O consoled, "Let it go. We will soon return this hatred. Don't be so hasty. I want to kill him with my own hands." "I'll definitely kill him with my own hands." Lawrence gnashed his teeth as he whispered, his face ferocious. "Oh, if it isn't Mr. Aubrey, and Mr. Cameron too." The Rose Garden was a lively place for spending gold indeed. First Prince Charles had just left, and Han Sha-O had already bumped into the incoming fellows whom he'd previously met at Boost Merchant Guild, Cameron and Aubrey, plus several other merchants. "Damn it, what the hell did you petty despicable villain do to our bodies?" As soon as he saw Han Sha-O, Aubrey couldn't help but fume and immediately curse. It was springtime with flowers blooming everywhere. The weather was great. However, Aubrey and Cameron looked somewhat weird. Aubrey's whole body was wrapped from head to toe in a thick fur coat. He stood there and shivered, his face frozen purple. On the other hand, Cameron was the exact opposite. In this gentle, comfortable weather he looked like he was at a sauna. His thin clothes were damp with sweat. His mouth breathed out hot air currents whenever he opened it to speak. His face flushed beet red. Evidently he was unbearably hot. Perhaps to balance out each other, these two weirdly dressed fellows walked hand in hand. As two great manly men, for them to appear in such a place like the Rose Garden while holding hands, it was even weirder. These two had been injected with the poison of ice and fire. Fire and ice poisons were taking turns to attack their bodies right now, making them extremely cold for a moment and then extremely hot the next. This pain would repeatedly torture them until the poison injected by Han Sha-O waned. Throwing the two a contemptuous glance, Han Sha-O viciously said, "Two great masters walking hand in hand in broad daylight. This is really sickening. Damnable. What poison did you actually give us, you lowly despicable villain?" Aubrey's two rows of teeth made clacking sounds as they chattered. He trembled as he shouted. Lawrence was originally furious seeing these two appear here, but now he felt a little better. He laughed heartily and shook his head in ridicule. "With this special hobby you should have been more surreptitious. Boldly coming here like this, your morality has really degraded. Brian, I won't let you off easily." Aubrey furiously glared at Han Sha-O and threatened with a wide mouth. As soon as he finished those words, the poison of ice and fire swapped. His ice-cold body suddenly spiked up in temperature. He hastily threw off his fur coat in a practiced manner and started cursing non-stop. "That's enough for today, let us leave this place," Han Sha-O persuaded. He understood that meeting Aubrey here meant that he would constantly be entangled by the latter, since he knew the misery caused by the poison of ice and fire was unbearable indeed. Furthermore, Lawrence had certainly lost interest in having fun after the vicious remarks he had received from Charles earlier. Lawrence seemed to have lost his mood as he nodded. "All right, I brought you here this time mainly for the matter earlier. We'll have plenty of time for fun later. These hated characters really disgust me. Let's leave. Don't allow them to latch onto us. Don't leave. Give me the antidote first or I won't leave you alone." Aubrey breathed heavily and stared at Han Sha-O, shouting non-stop, After knowing Han Shao-O's strength, the big businessman Cameron appeared to be afraid that Han Shao would abruptly kill him. He didn't dare to speak and just followed behind Aubrey. Han Shao quickly left with Lawrence without stopping. After they exited the Rose Garden, the Earth Rider Gino gave a loud shout. Several guards of Lawrence swiftly surrounded him. Aubrey had yet to come close when Gino crudely pushed him aside. Lawrence and Han Shao stepped into the carriage just like that and left the Rose Garden. "Alright, I'm going first. Wait for me to come look for you after I pick up my graduation diploma." Leaving the Rose Garden for a little while, Han Shao spoke a farewell to Lawrence. He then jumped off the carriage and left by himself. The number of people guarding Lawrence in both the light and dark weren't few, so Han Shao wasn't concerned much for his safety. He didn't need to stay and protect the latter, so he jumped out of the carriage to go handle his own personal matters. After separating from Lawrence, Han Shao went straight to the graveyard in the mountain back of the Babylon Academy of Magic and Force, entering the place hiding the transportation matrix. Fanny and Phoebe needed at least 3 days to adapt after taking the rebirth pill. In these 3 days they wouldn't stop having stomach aches until their bodies expelled all the impurities inside. Han Shao believed they definitely wouldn't want to see him during this time period. For beautiful women to have to squat on the toilet non-stop, no matter how elegant their bearings were, it'd still be greatly reduced. Lawrence had paved the way for Han Shao's future, but Han Shao needed to prove himself to be an adept necromancer. He intended to obtain the diploma of the Babylon Academy of Magic and Force when he came to see Fanny, so he had at least 3 more days of free time. Many things could be done in 3 days' time. Han Shao intended to go check the Valley of Sunshine first. He appeared in the Cemetery of Death through the transportation matrix, then used the art of the mnemonic Ninth Heavens to fly towards the Valley of Sunshine. Under Han Shao's instructions, Gilbert left the Cemetery of Death and brought the weapons from the dwarves to Trunks. They must have met already. Han Shao used all his strength and flew at the speed of a shooting star. There was only a faint light flashing through, heading towards the direction of the Valley of Sunshine. The Valley of Sunshine wasn't too far from the dark forest. Han Shao only took about half a day to arrive at the Valley of Sunshine with his current speed. There were many forces here, so when Han Shao reached the area, he didn't keep flying and instead walked on the ground to avoid raising attention. He moved forward following the address that Trunks had given him. Whoosh! Suddenly several arrows pierced the air and nailed the tree in front of Han Shao. As sounds of disturbance rang out, nearly 100 bandits stepped out from the bushes. They were obviously well trained and most of them held a good weapon. A small portion of them even wore a complete set of armor, the quality of which looked even better than that of the Lancelot Empire's official army. Nearly 100 bandits, eyes cold and momentum inspiring, suddenly surrounded Han Shao. Bows, crossbows and spears locked onto him one after another. There was a long red-haired unruly looking girl amongst them. She has bright eyes and white teeth, wearing a set of leather clothes. She looked quite arrogant as she walked forward with large strides and said haughtily, "We've watched you for quite a while now. You dare to fly around in our land. If you're so good, then fly here for me to see." Han Shao had been flying in the air just now, so he hadn't released the Yin demons to scout around. Moreover, he didn't pay too much attention of the going-abouts in the forest below and naturally didn't expect to be surrounded by layers of bandits. "You must be Lady Janet." Hee, I'm just an ordinary mage. I didn't know this area was your turf." "Sorry." Han Shao gave an once-over glance at the group, especially paying attention to that unruly girl. Then he said with a laugh, "It seems that you have some knowledge. Who are you? What the hell do you plan to do by infiltrating our territory?" The female bandit Janet glared at Han Shao, interrogating. "I just happened to pass by. I don't have any bad intentions." "Well then, I still have things to do. Will you allow me leave?" Han Shao had heard a bit about this female bandit Janet's deeds from Trunks. He knew this girl followed the bandit job as inheritance to her ancestry. Even though her character was a little unruly and stubborn, she wasn't a bad person. She could be considered a merciful bandit with a strict set of principles among the bandit forces around the Valley of Sunshine, so Han Shao didn't want to butt heads with her. "You look so shifty. You mustn't be any good person. The Valley of Sunshine has been chaotic recently, so who knows if you aren't a spy sent by our enemies?" "Men, come and capture this fellow first, then carefully immediately interrogate him. Janet stared fixedly at Han Sha-oh, seeing him exposing not even a bit of fear and grinning. Instead she started to feel somewhat annoyed and angrily turn around to order the gang. Chapter 257, Robbing the Robbers. Several rough bulky bandits abruptly sprang out from behind Janet. They grinned and shot toward Han Sha-oh. These fellows all seemed to have cultivated fighting aura. Each bandit was about 2 meters tall and emitted a pressure as fierce as a bear. Their momentum alone was enough to shock people. Sorry, I still have something to do, so I can't stay here long. Of course Han Sha-oh wasn't scared. When he saw these big guys closing in, he quickly shot up and slipped out of the besiegement of the surrounding men like an eel. His speed suddenly accelerated like that of a leopard. Han Sha-oh leapt onto a huge tree with just a tap of his foot, then leapt backwards more than 10 meters. It seemed like he'd soon be able to escape the encirclement of bandits. Damn it! Capture him alive for me. There must be something up with this breath. Janet was furious. She suddenly and fiercely shot toward Han Sha-oh and was actually able to move elegantly among the shrubs, her eyes fixed on Han Sha-oh without letting go. Several bandits had already fired a series of arrows and spears at Han Sha-oh as per Janet's order. However, they'd all heard her say alive, so they didn't dare to aim these attacks at him but instead shot at the path that he was aiming for. Han Sha-oh grinned. His body flashed left and right, up and down in an odd fashion. He only stuck to the middle of the forest and changed directions with an extremely quick speed. Not only did he avoid all of the attacks, he even leisurely explained, "Hey Miss Bandit, you shouldn't chase me like this. I'm really no spy." "You say you're not a spy, but why are you running as if you are a spy?" Janet was still in hot pursuit as she furiously roared, "Brothers, who cares if he's a spy or not? Get him!" This bandit group wasn't weak. The big guys that were chasing Han Sha-oh under Janet's order all had the strength of senior swordsmen. There were several shabbily dressed mages whose power were also similar. Han Sha-oh would be in big trouble if they all worked together to stop him. However, Han Sha-oh's current strength was unfathomable. The 3 yin demons he had released could cover the entire terrain as well as monitor the surrounding situation. Several obstacles were discovered ahead of time by the 3 yin demons, and so the distance between Han Sha-oh and the bandits gradually widened. His high speed coupled with the extensive observation of the 3 yin demons simply rendered the encirclement of Janet's gang useless. This group of bandits seemed to have a good reputation. In addition, Han Sha-oh also had some plans for them, but not in the same way that he'd ruthlessly treated the Butcher's gang. He didn't immediately leave after escaping their encirclement, but instead dragged them around to observe their quality and combat effectiveness through the surveillance of the Yin demons. Out of the more than 100 bandits, a majority of them had trained fighting aura, while a dozen or so were mages. In the process of pursuing Han Sha-oh, their formations were constantly stable without any particular franticness. Without Janet having to issue many commands, they all spread out in tacit understanding. If one side heard any movement from Han Sha-oh, they'd immediately alert the others, after which they would all rush in. Swordsmen, archers and mages would be arranged orderly in the encirclement. They have some strength indeed. No wonder they could become one of the most powerful forces in the Valley of Sunshine. Compared to the Butcher's bandit group, this one is much more smoothly ordered. However, the Butcher's bandits are more cruel and bloodthirsty. Han Sha-oh muttered to himself. He was hiding in the thick lush foliage of a huge tree while clearly observing their movements through the 3 yin demons. "Where is he?" "You guys lost him?" Janet was chasing aggressively when she realized that they had lost all traces of Han Sha-oh. She furiously shouted at the bandits around her. Be it her speech or actions, Janet didn't have the gentle and tender demeanor of a girl at all. Perhaps because she grew up in a bandit lair, her manner had been completely affected by the bandits. Her temper was ferocious and her behavior crude. Although she looked gentle and pretty, the feeling that she gave people was that of a great prideful man. "Young miss, this person is even faster than a leopard and more cunning than a fox." "Is he really a mage?" an old mage with one crippled leg said with a wry smile as he used the levitation skills to float to Janet's side. "Old Billy, if he were a swordsman or a knight, would he fly to this place from afar?" are? Damn it, are you so old that even your head is old too? Janet was still raging, her almond eyes rolling at the crippled old man as she huffed and cursed angrily. Old Billy wasn't angry being scolded at by her like that. He only hung his head with a wry smile. Maybe I'm really old now, or the times have changed. How could a mage run faster than a leopard? I dare say that he was running and not using levitation skills. Heavens, is he special like you? Exclamation mark. Search this area. This guy must be a spy, or he could be from the House of Milo. Paying no heed to old Billy, Janet shouted to some bandits nearby. Not here, young miss. Can't find him. He's gone. He may have escaped. All kinds of helpless messages resounded around Janet. Obviously the bandits had no way of discovering Han Sha'o's existence. It was already nighttime. Only Janet and Billy were standing under the tree where Han Sha'o was hiding. As for the other 7 or 8 bear-like bandits, they were in the middle of an area with tall weeds that reached the waist around 10 meters away from Janet. Han Sha'o, who was hiding in the foliage above, suddenly raised his voice to let out a long laugh, then flew straight down. He reached her in the blink of an eye, smashing a blow that contained magical yuan and surging evil aura at her head. Damn it! Janet cursed as she pushed away the old Billy, who was about to chant a spell. She curled her hand into a fist that emitted a dark green fighting aura, aiming it at Han Sha'o's punch above. Seeing the dark green fighting aura, Han Sha'o immediately understood that she should only have the strength of a senior swordsman. He quickly reduced the magical yuan in his punch from 80% to 30%. Bang! The dark green fighting aura and Han Sha'o's punch fiercely collided, and their fists hit each other. A force that could roll the mountains and topple the sea suddenly shot out from Janet's small fist. This force flipped the flying down Han Sha'o up again in the same trajectory that he fell. How could this be? Exclamation mark. His right hand became numb. Han Sha'o couldn't help but exclaim, his face horrified. The green fighting aura was the signature of a senior swordsman. From Han Sha'o's experience, Janet could at most withstand about 30% of the power from his magical yuan. However, even though Janet's fighting aura scattered when their punches collided, her small fist still emitted a terrifying force. If it wasn't for Han Sha'o's unusually tough body, her punch could have crippled his right hand. To his understanding, the green fighting aura of a senior swordsman absolutely couldn't cause such a great force. This female bandit was a little strange. Kiki. Janet revealed a satisfying laugh at Han Sha'o's horrified face. Then her space ring flashed and a studded club bigger than her body appeared. She easily held the studded club in her left hand and giggled as she leapt up toward Han Sha'o, using the high trees around. Han Sha'o had yet to fall down when the studded club viciously aimed at his waist and smashed downwards. Han Sha'o snorted coldly. He had just showed some goodwill and didn't expect to eat the loss in return. Seeing Janet pound her studded club right at his lower body, he became somewhat angry. His body, that was hit dizzy by the strong force earlier, suddenly halted midair as he aimed a similar punch right at Janet's studded club. Rumble! A huge sound rang out, followed by Janet's surprised yelp. She was using the tree trunks to leap up, but now both her body and studded club were fiercely smashed back down. As her butt slammed on the ground, Janet looked at the proud Han Sha'o standing midair aghast. Motherfucker, son of a BTCH, pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger. Janet couldn't help but let out a vulgar curse. Her breathing was heavy for a while before she took hold of the studded club, wanting to fight again. Han Sha'o was shocked. He didn't expect Janet to be able to stand up so quickly. Not letting him make a move again, the big mercenaries around them rushed up together. The old crippled mage Billy was also finished chanting his spell. Chilling winds whistled as they churned into piercing sharp wind blades whizzing forwards. He was actually a wind archmage. Han Sha'o was stunned for a moment. Now that he knew of Janet's power, he didn't continue to stay here. He flew to hide himself in the foliage of the tree behind them, then made a few leaps and dropped down to a carriage that belonged to the bandits. As soon as he landed, he used the Demon Slayer edge to slice open the carriage's top. While everyone wasn't paying attention, he grabbed a blithely unaware young woman, suppressed her strength and flew out. "You rogue, let me go. Hurry and let me go, or Janet definitely won't let you off." This young woman was utterly beautiful, arching crescent eyebrows, a pair of clear and bright eyes. Her voice was soft even though she was yelling angrily. "Janet, I'm taking this girl away. If you want to rescue her, come to the Soul Destroyer mercenary band. Han Shao seized the young woman without any care for her shouting. He laughed loudly and left grandly. Scoundrel! Let go of my wife or else I'll never be finished with you. Janet was raging as she roared to the heavens, then she constantly and vulgarly cursed. She hadn't a bit of the manner that a gentle girl should have had. Chapter 258 Headquarters. The dangerously steep cliff that was tapering into a bottomless abyss was covered in floating clouds. The crimson sunset was outstanding in the sky, shining on the towering cliff, which now looked like an enormous red branding iron. This cliff was a long distance away from the Valley of Sunshine. This kind of cliff wasn't uncommon in the Kurlan mountain range. Rugged, oddly shaped rocks were scattered all over the bare cliff and no plants grew anywhere. Standing atop the cliff, Han Shao leapt straight downwards. In just a breath of time he fell through the clouds and landed safely on a huge protruding rock. This big rock was situated in the middle of the cliff and there was thick white mist above and below it. Part of this protruding cliff was flat, and although a little steep, it wasn't that dangerous as long as he was careful. "Who are you?" a fellow with a bare upper body exclaimed. His face was messily beardy, his hand holding an axe forged by the dwarves as he stared at Han Shao in a hostile manner. "I'm looking for Trunks," Han Shao answered with a smile. The Soul Destroyer mercenary band was situated on a vast flat plain on the protruding rock in the middle of the cliff. The rock was floating on this cloudy mist, and for some reasons unknown this thick mist didn't spread to the center. Above and below this flat plain was a vast expanse of misty white, giving it a somewhat strange appearance. A row of bamboo huts were spread out along the flat plain. Many mercenaries with bare upper bodies were practicing martial arts on a fighting platform as large as a football field. Behind it were several large caves which could also be used for housing. This flat plain was truly miraculous. It was covered in thick mist above and below, leaving only the center, which was isolated by a simple enchantment. This thick layer of white mist was a natural barrier, ensuring that no one would discover the flat plain within it. There was no mist in the center of the plain and the air was fresh. It was quiet and concealed a good hiding place. Han Shao was holding the gentle girl in his arms. Her eyes couldn't see and her ears couldn't hear, as he had already restricted her senses. The moment he landed, Han Shao immediately felt Gilbert's presence. "Honored master, you've finally returned." The pitch-black Gilbert was in the middle of the fighting platform. His body was naked from the waist up, showing his glossy black muscles. He threw two entangled mercenaries aside and yelled loudly as he ran toward Han Shao. The brawny guy holding the axe, who'd been eyeing Han Shao with hostility, immediately curved his mouth into a smile as he heard Gilbert call Han Shao his master. He said in a friendly manner, "Your weapon is very good, thank you." Since Han Shao offended the Church of Light and the Calamity Church at the same time, he didn't tell Trunks his other identity in order to guard against these two churches. These mercenaries only knew Han Shao as a good friend of Trunks, but they didn't know about the other matter. "No need to stand on ceremony. Where's Trunks?" Nodding, Han Shao asked this brawny guy. "He's gone out for something, but he should be back by evening." "Honored master, you've returned," the naked Gilbert yelled as he walked forward. Many mercenaries on the flat plain could hear his voice. A great deal of them exited their bamboo huts and rock caves, looking at Han Shao with surprise. Gilbert had lazed around this place for quite some time. Even in his human form, none of these mercenaries could deal with his tyrannical dark dragon body. Evidently he had established a powerful image during that time. This powerful being actually humbly called Han Shao master, shocking the mercenaries who resided on this flat plain. They couldn't help but want to take a look and see how powerful this figure was that he could make Gilbert submit. "Many thanks to your weapons. They are really useful." "That's right. This broadsword is amazing. Worthy of being a weapon forged by the dwarves. Thank you, thank you. The weight of this double-edged hatchet really suits me, thank you." The mercenaries shouted one after another, their eyes looking at Han Shao with gratitude and good fault will. Evidently they were extremely satisfied with the weapons that had Gilbert brought with him. "No need to be polite. Trunks and I are the best of friends, he. Han Shao nodded and laughed in a friendly manner, his eyes shining as they assessed these mercenaries. Han Shao saw more than 100 mercenaries on this flat piece of land. Each of them possessed a calm and experienced bearing. The majority were swordsmen plus a dozen or so mages and more than 30 archers. Judging from the presence exuded from their bodies, they must be great men with extraordinary power and tough mindsets. Compared to the bandit group led by Janet, the Soul Destroyer mercenary band also had over 100 members. Its power was a bit stronger. Amongst them several mercenaries were still young yet had a cold and calm bearing. Han Shao knew these people used to be a part of the Rainbow Sickle mercenary band that he'd met at the House of Milo. Their calm and cold manner forged from weathering many battles made Han Shao look at them a few more times. "Hey, you're called Brian? You must be very powerful to be Gilbert's master. Are you interested in exchanging blows?" a seasoned mercenary offered. He was about 1.90 meters tall, naked from the waist up, revealing his bulging muscles. He held a broadsword of 1.5 meters in length as his eyes squinted at Han Shao, measuring him with his imitation. When he spoke, his right hand, which held the sword, easily waved around as if demonstrating his strength. A dark green fighting aura suddenly flared up as a sharp blade light flickered in and out of existence. Alright, Trunks wasn't back yet anyway. In order to remove future obstacles when he revealed his identity, Han Shao intended to leave a powerful impression and deeply engrave it into the depths of their hearts. That would be the most effective method. Han Shao walked towards the fighting platform, relaxed and unrestrained. As he walked, he took off his shirt so that his body was also naked from the waist up. His body was over 1.80 meters tall. Each chunk of muscle was as if carved by a knife. His force was vigorous and explosive. The rows of muscles were perfectly coordinated, as they were naturally formed through the tempering of his demonic magic. As he flung off his shirts, the mercenaries around saw his body and immediately issued surprised comments. A bunch of them excitedly jumped as they yelled, "Grant, you're in trouble." They were all knowledgeable people. Seeing the strong muscles and perfectly coordinated lines on Han Shao's body, they immediately knew that this sturdy and balanced body was most suited for fighting. Grant held a broadsword and his body was large. However, some of his muscles weren't that visible. His muscles could achieve explosive power thanks to his fighting aura, but his speed would obviously be affected. On the contrary, each chunk of Han Shao's muscles was clear and harmonious. Even in the most difficult place to grow muscles, his V-lines appeared as if they were carved. This type of body with perfect muscle coordination was the most suitable for combat. Grant also showed a surprised expression. Seeing that Han Shao had come empty-handed, he was stunned for a moment, then threw aside his broadsword, shouting defiantly, "Then we won't use weapons, only relying on pure physical strength to compare." "As you wish." Han Shao laughed loudly. He walked towards Grant, not using magical yuan at all. Grant was delighted. He increased his speed and charged forward without waiting for Han Shao to close in. His body rushed violently toward Han Shao, curving his lips and clenching his fist, aiming it straight down at the latter. Unexpectedly, Han Shao moved step by step without any other actions. He just watched the incoming iron fist, the corner of his mouth curving into an odd smile. Boom! The momentum of Grant's punch was like a rainbow as it pounded into Han Shao's chest. A muffled drum-like sound came out of the latter's body. Han Shao's figure stood still, even the smile on his face remained unchanged. "Oh my God, is your body made of steel?" On the contrary, it was Grant who grimaced, his fist in pain, his face miserable. Hey! Han Shao made a move like lightning. He took hold of Grant's shoulder and suddenly threw it over his shoulder. The big man's 1.90 meters body fluttered like a feather, flying a few meters into the air and falling just right onto a large soft cushion. Leisurely sweeping his eyes to glance at the nearby mercenaries, Han Shao called out dashingly, "Does any other brother want to try? Whether it's physical attacks, fighting, aura, or magic, I can do them all." When his words fell, every single one of the Soul Destroyer mercenary band was completely silent. They dazedly looked at Han Shao, dumbfounded. No one dared to step up. "Wakaka, you guys are idiots. Daring to compete with my master in bodily strength." In the forbidden land of the Dark Forest, even the Golden Dragon, proclaimed to have the most powerful body, couldn't fight against my great master. "You brats are truly crazy," Gilbert shouted triumphantly, scaring the already stunned mercenaries into shock. "Mighty master, you've even brought me a woman this time? You're becoming more and more considerate," Gilbert squealed as he suddenly discovered the restrained woman that had been put aside by Han Shao. He excitedly walked over. "Stop, this woman is not to be touched. I still have great uses for her. She belongs to that female bandit isn't Janet, and so I need to use her to schedule an appointment with Janet." Han Shao glared at Gilbert as he snapped. Gilbert immediately became honest upon hearing Han Shao's shout. At this time the sound of rustling wind echoed down the steep cliff. In just a while Trunks along with Odysseus and a bunch of others landed down from above. "You've come," Trunks immediately said with a smile when he saw Han Shao. As he walked to the ladder his eyes unintentionally glanced around. He was suddenly stunned as he looked at the girl that Han Shao had brought, his expression extremely odd. After a while Trunks loudly cried out Annie, then furiously rushed over to her side. The people next to him were originally from the Rainbow Sickle Mercenary Band. They were first ecstatic before looking at her with some suspicion as they muttered something's not right. Chapter 259, Assembly. Trunks' expression was exceedingly off as he dashed in front of the girl like lightning. He reached out a hand to touch the necklace of crystal shards on her neck. He said with a choked up voice, "Annie, it's definitely you." The original Rainbow Sickle Mercenary Band members all clustered around Trunks and looked on with confused stares. Grant, who'd been tossed into the air by Han Shao, couldn't help but say, "Chief, Miss Annie doesn't look like that." "It's definitely Annie. I gifted her that crystal necklace and the black mole behind her left ear are all proof that she's Annie." Trunks' voice was thick with tears as he held on to the girl and sobbed with joy. The mercenaries who'd been doubtful before all cheered when they heard that Trunks had confirmed her identity. They used their mallets to bash each other's chests as they seemed to want to use pain to express how excited and happy they were. "Annie, Annie, what's wrong? Why can't you speak?" Trunks asked frantically when he realized the girl in his grasp wasn't moving and was as quiet as a puppet. "Allow me." Han Shao dashed in front of Trunks and placed his right hand on Annie's back. A beam of black light entered her body and cleaned away the restraints placed on her. The girl, with her head lolling to the side, suddenly had color suffuse her cheeks again. She seemed to feel Trunks shaking as her long eyelashes fluttered, suddenly snapping open into bright eyes as she looked at Trunks perplexed. That lasted for only a moment. A shrill scream immediately broke from the girl's mouth. She struggled fiercely and threw punches and kicks at Trunks. She resisted ferociously and cursed loudly, "Damn it, who are you? If Janet knew, she'd kill you for sure. Let go of me, let go of me." However, the girl didn't seem to have practiced martial techniques. Her punches and kicks didn't cause Trunks much damage when they landed on him. Trunks let go of the girl in bafflement. "Annie, do you not remember me?" "Who's Annie?" "I'm Betty." "You must have the wrong person. You're crazy." The girl dodged Trunks and looked huffily at Han Shao. "You evil robber, what do you want with me here?" Han Shao didn't respond as he looked at Annie with deeply furrowed brows. Linley looked at the deeply emotional and dejected Trunks. "Trunks, you're not recognizing the wrong person, are you?" Shaking his head firmly, Trunks said, "I gave her that crystal necklace and the black mole on her ear is still there. This is definitely Annie, but I don't know why her looks have changed and why she doesn't remember me." "Then there's nothing wrong about it. These marks mean that it must be her." Memories are sometimes forgotten after enormous stimulus, and some magical potions can be used to change one's appearance. Han Shao said calmly. "That's right, that must be the case." "Where did you find her?" Trunks immediately agreed when he heard Han Shao respond. "You jerks, what do you want to do with me? Hurry up and let me go, or Janet will never let you off the hook." The originally gentle girl became a bit frantic because of her dangerous circumstances and she kicked up quite a fuss. I grabbed her from Janet's hands. "It looks like we'll understand what's going on only after we find Janet. I have things to discuss with her anyways." "Annie, where did you get this crystal necklace?" Trunks asked in a shaky voice as he walked towards the girl and pointed at the necklace on her neck. "How would I know? It's mine." "You must have the wrong person. Please let me go. I can have Janet and let you guys go too." The young girl seemed to feel Trunks' affection for her and begged pitiably. "Do you remember your childhood, the matters of your youth?" Trunks' eyes glimmered with light as he looked closely at the girl, asking anxiously. Shaking her head like a rattle drum, the girl bawled, I don't remember anything, and I don't want to." "Let me go." By now even the original Rainbow Sickle Mercenary Band members could see that she had indeed lost her memory and was sure that this had to be Annie who had been missing for 3 years. "I'm going to find Janet and get to the bottom of this. Uncle Grant, take 2 small teams and make the trip with me." Trunks had a resolute expression on his face and gave an order to Grant, then spoke softly to Annie. "Annie, stay here for now. They'll take care of you like before." "I'm not Annie, let me go." Annie wanted to cry when she saw that Trunks was about to leave. "Come, let's do it all tonight." Swiping with his eyes, Trunks couldn't bear to look at the sobbing Annie and cast a glance at Han Sha-Oh walking down with large strides. There were 20 people on each small team as well as Odysseus' crew, Han Sha-Oh and Gilbert walking along the flat ground. They climbed up the previously shaped stone stairs and climbed up out of the cliff. "Why did you leave in such a hurry last time?" Odysseus asked Han Sha-Oh with a smile as Gordon and Aphrodite also chattered away. "It couldn't be helped. I had a ton of stuff to do last time, plus that Ferguson was hot on my tail, so I had to leave." Han Sha-Oh smiled apologetically at Odysseus and explained. He looked to the right and left and saw that no one was paying any attention to him. Odysseus couldn't help but ask a question in a low tone at this point. Nodding, Han Sha-Oh said softly yes. Gordon was delighted and chuckled. "You're amazing to have created such a large mercenary band. We were only willing to join after Trunks said that the boss in the shadows was you." Clapping Gordon's shoulder, Han Sha-Oh smiled faintly and nodded, not saying much. The friendship of life and death that Han Sha-Oh had formed with him in the dark forest was indeed becoming of use. A merchant happened to discover a silver mine in the mountain valley. It's said that there's even mithril inside. All of the powers in the Valley of Sunshine have fought several times for possession of this silver mine. I've received news that Lord of the Kyra mercenary band will be going over tonight as well. The Kyra mercenary band has occupied all high ground in the valley and it'll be difficult for the other powers to fight against him. Lord has left the valley this time for mithril. The other power won't let him off the hook either, so there's certainly going to be a vicious battle tonight at the silver mine. I've come back to take some men and watch the show and see if there are any benefits to be had," Trunks explained as he arrived above ground from the misty flat grounds. Startled, Han Sha-Oh said, "Silver mines are rare enough to begin with. Mithril is the ultimate material used in forging weapons and armor. No wonder everyone's gone crazy over it. If such a mine were discovered, its value is truly unsurpassable. Therefore all of the factions in the valley will want a share of the profits." The merchant who discovered it was killed in the first moment, but sadly the news had already traveled. Trunks nodded in agreement. "Come, let's go take a look as well. If there are no accidents, Janet will appear there as well." Han Sha-Oh thought for a bit and suggested to Trunks. My thoughts precisely," Trunks responded. The group of 30-some people left the cliff silently, heading for their destination with Trunks' instructions. The mercenaries that Trunks had brought along were mostly the experienced extraordinary members of the Soul Destroyers. They kept checking their equipment along the way and looked around alertly, carefully avoiding the other groups of people along the way. As the sky darkened before the crescent moon rose into the night sky, Trunks stopped in front of a boulder and pointed at a valley in the distance that was filled with ivy vegetation. "There it is. I think all the powers in the valley have arrived. The smaller forces like us who want to take advantage of the situation will also be greatly numerous. It's going to be a bit impossible to hide without anyone discovering us. The others remain here. Yumi and Gilbert will go inside first. Just follow me and be careful. No one will discover us then." Han Sha-Oh turned his head and calmly gave Trunks his orders. Trunks had witnessed Han Sha-Oh's miracles before. He immediately turned back to the others and said, "Uncle Grant, you guys remain here and hide yourselves for now. We'll scout ahead. I'll use signals to notify you if anything happens." As experienced mercenaries, they wouldn't have any objections about their chief's orders once they started their operations. Grant nodded, saying lowly, "Understood. Follow me." Han Sha-Oh called out softly and lowered his body to be level with the shrubbery. He took a step out and sent the 3 yin demons out around him, keeping an eye on all movement around him. Chapter 260, Adding fuel to the flames. This mithril mine is within the Rainbow Sickle Mercenary Band's area of influence. It now belongs to our Church of Light. All of you please leave. The Light Grand Magus Ferguson floated in the air. He wore a pure white magic robe that shone with splendor. His left hand held a magic staff that emitted a dazzling light. He gave off an inviolable sacred bearing. All of the light magical elements in the valley converged towards his magic staff from all directions. Ferguson's presence was becoming stronger and and stronger. A brilliant curtain of light burst out of the magic staff in his hand, illuminating the moonless valley. A small river was quietly flowing in the center of this valley, a few li wide. Big rocks of strange forms surrounded the whole river. The mountain wall was covered in a green thick carpet of ivy-like vines. The four great powers in the Valley of Sunshine, the Kyra mercenary band, the Rainbow Sickle mercenary band, the House of Minlo, and the Guitar Orc tribe had all gathered here. They had divided the valley into 4 sections in order to occupy it. In addition, a dozen or so smaller forces were scattered in groups here and there. All of them had come here driven by greed. Han Shao had originally wanted to hide his traces. As soon as he heard the loud rumbling, he released the 3 Yin demons to circle and scout the valley. After obtaining a clear understanding of the situation through the Yin demons, he knew that this was a key moment in the valley, since all the forces were no longer hiding in secret. "Let's go. No one will notice us as long as we're a bit careful," Han Shao shouted lightly, leading Gilbert and Trunks. The 3 cautiously slipped through several forces to a remote corner in the valley before hiding behind a large boulder. Mr. Ferguson, the person who discovered the silver mine, was a merchant from our House of Minlo. "Therefore the mine nationally belongs to us." Adam Minlo, head of the House of Minlo, said blandly, his face heavy as he glared at Ferguson. Adam Minlo was a skinny old man rumored to be a skyrider. He was riding on the super rank magic creature Golden Winged Rock, holding a golden spear in hand. He looked very heroic. Dozens of experts from the House of Minlo were behind him. The entire group was riding on exotic odd magic creatures, their hands grasping superior weapons or magic staffs. They all stared at Ferguson in an unfriendly manner. "Ferguson, it's not your Church of Light's turn to be arrogant in this Valley of Sunshine. Our Kyra mercenary band is the true master of this place. Everything here belongs to us." The bald robust lord shouted in a bell-like voice. His right hand wielded a huge battle axe in demonstration. This battle axe showed no reflection under the light magic, as if it contained a mysterious force within. At a glance the handle seemed rusted all over, as if it had been through many years of life. Similarly, the elite mercenaries of the Kyra mercenary band were standing behind Lord. He was evidently also determined to take control of this mithril mine. The chief of the Guitar Orc tribe stood on another side. He was roughly 2.5 meters tall and carried a huge totem pole on his shoulder. The warriors of the tribe behind him were similar from their bodies to weapons. "Looks like this battle is inevitable." Han Shao curved his lips into a devious smile as he said to Trunks, looking at the 4 great powers having their tit-for-tat in the central part of the valley. But why are Janins and the Butcher's bandit gangs not here?" Trunk first nodded, then asked somewhat suspiciously. "Logically speaking, they should have gotten the message. I didn't expect that they wouldn't even come for a piece of the pie. They've actually come already. They are just hiding like us." Hey, these bandits didn't dare to expose themselves, so they've just been hiding." Han Shao pointed in the direction of the Guitar Orc tribe chief and said, "There's a huge rock in the mountain valley behind them. The Butcher's bandits are over there. Over there within the ivy bush about a li behind the House of Minlo is Janet's gang. However, we shouldn't go hunting for her for the time being. Let's look at the situation first before deciding." "Understood," Trunks replied. Since the valley was limited in size, the parties here had only brought a portion of their elite forces. The number of people from each faction wasn't too large. All of the powers in the light and dark had gathered here with the intention of taking the mine. The situation was an imminent stalemate in every corner and direction of the valley. At this moment no one dared to make a move. Even Lorne didn't dare to act first, avoiding the inevitability of becoming a target for the other forces. After quarreling with each other for a while, the 4 great powers were still stuck in a battle of glares and curses. Even the lackeys only waved their weapons around like props. They hadn't officially started the fight. Obviously they were still having some apprehension about each other. "These people are so troublesome. Why can't they just make a move? I'm already so tired from looking at them," Gilbert observed for a while, but the bunch was still quarreling non-stop. He couldn't help but complain. "Where is the mine? I'll give them some impetus." Han Shao thought for a bit, then looked to Trunks and asked, "There's a hidden underground cave over there at that overgrowth. Rumor has it there is silver inside and even a very small amount of mithril." Trunks answered as he pointed at the place where the 4 great factions were standing. His heart jumped as Han Shao suddenly had an idea. He laughed devilishly. I have a way. This time I must make Florida suffer continuously. Han Shuo's group saw Florida upon moving forward. His injuries had been completely healed after half a year's worth of recovery. He was currently in high spirits as he stood behind his grandfather Ferguson and whispered something to Asa. Asa and Maxine had tried to assassinate Han Shuo during his last trip to the Valley of Sunshine. Marco's right arm had been cut off in the end and he barely escaped with great embarrassment. He seemed to yet to recover as his face was pale without the color of blood. Even though the severed arm had been reconnected, the spasming of his fingers indicated that some after effects were present. His arm might never recover its original flexibility. The little skeleton and Earth Elite zombie appeared after necromancy chant. After being refined by demonic magic, the Earth Elite zombie no longer had the original appearance of a zombie warrior. He didn't look much different from a human. Upon receiving an order, the Earth Elite zombie slowly sank into the ground and disappeared before the incredulous eyes of Trunks. There was no change in the land where he disappeared, as if he were a drop of water absorbed by the soil. What is this? What thing is he? Exclamation mark. Trunks cried out in disbelief. He seemed to be unable to accept the scene that he had just witnessed. Pointing at the little skeleton, Han Shuo smiled and explained the same as him. Upon hearing Han Shuo mention him, the little skeleton's purple eye immediately lit up and focused on Trunks. He arrogantly waved his right hand, which grasped the bone knife, seemingly disdainful of Trunks' ignorance. I see, wondrous Brian. You truly know how to shock people, Trunks exclaimed, then smiled dryly as he said, no wonder both Ferguson and Edwin are looking for you. This is the territory of the Rainbow Sickle Mercenary Band. You dared to break into this place and covet the silver mine. You really think too little of us, Florida shouted on the other side with murderous intent as he looked coldly at Lorton. Amongst the troops invading the valley this time, the Rainbow Sickle Mercenary Band had brought the most amount of people. Moreover, with the presence of his grandfather Ferguson and the Church of Light, Florida felt that his side was the most powerful. His manner nationally became more overbearing. Florida, do you think the Valley of Sunshine is your home just because you have your grandfather backing you? Lorton coldly snorted as he mocked Florida. Suddenly the Earth Elite zombie appeared beneath the thick bush of ivy vines. His hands held a huge silver rock and enthusiastically ran towards Florida, giving the big rock to the latter under the crowd's watching eyes. Very good, damn you, Florida, your people are blatantly exploiting the mine and simply ignoring our presence. Seeing the situation, the head of the House of Minlo, Adam Minlo, immediately cursed out loud. He rode the super rank golden winged rock and rushed straight at Florida. The golden winged rock was 12 meters long. Its pair of golden wings unfurled and covered the moon that had just risen in the night sky. A sharp cry resounded as the huge wings were like sharp blades that were flapping rapidly, creating enormous gusts through the valley. The frenzied winds fiercely buffeted the Rainbow Sickle mercenaries on Florida's side, making their sleeves flutter madly. Their bodies swayed as they couldn't stand straight. As the golden spear was raised, it emitted a thick murderous intent. Adam Minlo was at the forefront as he charged towards the Rainbow Sickle Mercenary Band. The men from the House of Minlo were riding all kinds of exotic magic creatures as they shouted and followed from behind. Your Church of Light will never have the chance to be arrogantly dominant in the Valley of Sunshine. Brothers, let him know who's the strongest in the Valley of Sunshine. Lorton suddenly roared to the sky, bursting out of his clothes. A terrifying aura exploded out of his body and his bald head shone brilliantly. As his body sank into a berserk state, Lorton became extremely violent and impulsive. He carried the huge battle axe and was the first to rush out, leading the charge. The battle axe swept out fiercely. The boulders that he passed exploded with rumbling sounds as he charged forward with terrifying momentum. Behind him, a group of Kyra mercenaries also went berserk. They roared and howled loudly as they rushed towards the Rainbow Sickle mercenaries like a group of mad bulls. At the same time, the chief of the Qatar Orc tribe howled a few sentences in the Orc language, fiercely slamming his huge totem against the ground. The ground immediately shook violently before the totem pole caused a great pit. Several Orc shamans also capered madly. Colorful lights fell one by one onto the bodies of dozens of Orcs behind Qatar. After being blessed by the chant, their muscles turned as hard as granite. Together they raised their shining totem poles and advanced in a strange rhythm, howling as they rushed towards Florida. Who are you? Do you want want to kill us all? Exclamation mark. Florida roared furiously at the Earth Elite zombie, his rage reaching its peak. He quickly chanted a spell wanting to kill the Earth Elite zombie first before anything else. It was a pity that the Earth Elite zombie quickly sank into the ground and had already disappeared without a trace before he even completed the spell. Florida eventually gathered a light sword to deal with Lorden, who was madly charging towards him. Once the berserkers and orcs went berserk, Florida knew too well how difficult it would be to stop them. He understood that this battle was unavoidable. On the other hand, he had the intention of killing Lorden to begin with. He'd be killed heartlessly if he didn't find a way to stop the latter. The light sword shot forward as he laughed wildly. The attack had yet to reach Lorden before it shattered into tiny pieces of light. The bald berserker sprinted towards Florida with awe-inspiring momentum. Boulders were sent flying in many pieces wherever he passed. The battle axe in his hand emitted a presence that could disintegrate mountains and upend the seas. Formidable, they truly are experts. This battle is really interesting. Han Sha laughed loudly and said leisurely as he looked at the other three great powers attacking the Rainbow Sickle mercenary band. Honored Master, what do we do now? Gilbert couldn't help but ask with excitement when he saw the chaotic scenes. Trunks, send out the signal and have our brothers come over. These people who want to fight, let them fight. You guys go harvest the mine, I will keep watch out here. Han Sha hastily told Trunks when he saw the scene of extreme chaos in the valley. But the mine entrance is right where they are fighting. Since they've blocked the place, whoever tries to go inside will meet with a bad downfall. This isn't a good idea. Trunks smiled dryly and didn't immediately release the signal. Hey, the secret tunnel is prepared. With the Earth Elite zombie here, we won't have to go that way. Han Sha laughed softly. As soon as he finished those words, a tunnel appeared underneath the rock where they were hiding. The Earth Elite zombie stood in the middle of that tunnel and waved his hand, beckoning with a broad smile.